Today, welcome to our first online video. I'm going to be starting with chapter 17, Patterns of Inheritance. This is going to be broken up into several different presentations so that you can watch them at your convenience. This chapter is about genetics, and specifically it's about classical genetics, or what we call Mendelian genetics, after Gregor Mendel, who was the father of this concept. Very interestingly, he studied this in the 1800s without understanding what DNA and genes really were, of course, the degree that we understand them now. And yet he was able to deduce everything he did using pea plants and particular traits about a pea plant. I have here that he was a lucky monk in the fact that the traits that he decided to study in the pea plants were very what I call black and white. It's either one way or another, and that's something that we now call dominant or recessive. There are a lot of traits that don't work that way, and we'll discuss some of those later. He was unlucky in the fact that his work went unnoticed and lost for decades after he published it. And it was not until the early 1900s that a few scientists had come across a paper that he had published. Now, what I wanted to show you is something that we've done in the 2000s, within the last year or so, that would not be able to be done without the knowledge that Gregor Mendel gave to us. And so let's pop over here for a second. And I want to show you this company here called SPARC Therapeutics. They have developed something called a gene therapy treatment for blindness. And I will pull that up here. Apologize for moving this screen around, but the medication is called Luxturna, and it is for a genetic disease that leads to blindness. And they are able to rescue these patients by delivering a good version of the gene because the patient has a bad or mutated version of the gene. And this is something that has never been approved by the FDA before, so this is the first time, but this concept has been worked on for a long time, and we would not have been able to do what we're doing now without the discoveries made by Gregor Mendel. So let's go back to the PowerPoint presentation and move our screen over a bit for you. Okay, now what do we want to explain next about what he did? He worked with pea plants, and I do want to point out something we discussed earlier in the class, that plants are self-fertilizing. They have both the female portions, the stigma and ovule, and they also have male, all within one plant. And so they don't need another plant to create seeds. However, to do Mendels work, he wanted that to happen. So he wound up cross-fertilizing. And so he took, a little brush where he could get the pollen from the one plant, that's just sperm, that were on the stamens. And then he could bring it over here to the female portion, the stigma, and then the pollen would fall in here and fertilize the egg. So he could study how we could take a particular color of flower, the egg of that flower, and combine it with the sperm of a different color flower, and what came out in the end. Now let's define a few things. One is genotype versus phenotype. Remember, what we studied is we know that we have pairs of chromosomes. In each pair, I have one from my mom and one from my dad. Mendel did not understand all of this before he saw his results. And the genetic makeup of all of our genes and our chromosomes, that's what we call our genotype. But how those genes compete with each other inside the cell, inside the body, leads to a particular phenotype. And so the phenotype is the expression that we see of these genes outside of the body. Moving on to another term, which is alleles. Apologize for this. Alleles are different versions of genes. And so in this case, we have a chromosome from mom, a chromosome from dad, right? And we can see that this is a particular gene. The gene is very similar on one chromosome as it is on another. And it tells, that gene dictates what color the flower will be. So this is the gene for color. But on this homologous chromosome, the allele or the version of the flower color is purple. And on this homologous chromosome, the allele or version is white. This would be just like saying, okay, I want to get a Honda Civic, and it's the same exact car, but one is going to be in red, one is going to be in gray. Okay, so these are different alleles, different colors of the same car, and different alleles of the same gene.